You know that feeling when your entire world shifts in a single moment? When everything you thought you knew about yourself, about your life, suddenly becomes uncertain. That's what happened to me the night Daniel Morrison walked into my apartment with nothing but a duffel bag and that devastating smile. I'm Alex Chen, and this is the story of how my carefully constructed life fell beautifully apart. 3 months ago, if someone had told me I'd be falling for my roommate, a guy who seemed completely, impossibly straight A, would have laughed. Not because I was closeted. I'd been out since college, comfortable in my identity, navigating the world as an openly gay man in Seattle's tech scene. No, I would have laughed because I had rules, boundaries, a whole system designed to protect my heart from exactly this kind of chaos. But Daniel didn't care about my rules. The rain hammered against my apartment windows that October afternoon. Typical Seattle weather that matched my mood perfectly. I'd been searching for a roommate for 3 weeks, ever since my ex, Marcus, moved out. The rent on my 2-bedroom place in Capitol Hill was eating through my savings. And my job as a UX designer, while stable, didn't leave much room for solo living in one of the city's trendiest neighborhoods. I'd interviewed 7 people. Each one felt wrong in different ways. Too messy. Too uptight. One guy actually asked if I'd be okay with his healing crystal collection taking up the entire living room. I was starting to think I'd have to move to a studio in the suburbs when Daniel's message appeared on the Roommate Finder app. Saw your listing. Recent transplant to Seattle. Software engineer. Clean, quiet, respectful of space. Looking for something long-term? Let me know if the room's still available. Daniel, his profile picture showed a guy around my age, late 20s, with dark hair, warm brown eyes, and an easy smile. In the photo, he was hiking somewhere green and mountainous, looking windswept and genuinely happy. Something about the image felt safe, uncomplicated. I needed uncomplicated. We'd exchanged maybe a dozen messages. At one video call where he seemed normal and employed, and I'd said yes. Now he was moving in, and I was second-guessing everything as I rearranged the throw pillows on the couch for the 3rd time. The buzzer rang. "It's Daniel," came the voice through the intercom. Slightly distorted, but warm. "Come on up. 3rd floor, apartment 3C. I buzzed him in and opened the door, listening to footsteps ascending the stairs. When he appeared on the landing, he was exactly like his picture and nothing like it at all. Photos couldn't capture the way he moved, athletic and assured, or the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. He was taller than I'd expected, maybe 6'1" to my 5'9", with broader shoulders under his rain-dampened jacket. "Alex," he said, extending his hand. His grip was firm, his palm warm despite the cold rain outside. "Daniel, welcome. You're just in time. The rain's supposed to get worse." He laughed, stepping inside. "I'm learning that's just Seattle's way of saying hello." As he set down his duffel bag, I caught the scent of rain and something else, cedar, maybe, or sandalwood. Clean and outdoorsy. I mentally shook myself. This was my roommate. My straight roommate, based on the casual mentions of an ex-girlfriend named Sarah during our video call. "So, this is the place," I said, gesturing around the open-concept living room and kitchen. "I know you saw it on the video tour, but it's better in person." "It's great," Daniel said, his eyes scanning the space appreciatively. He noticed the vintage concert posters on the wall's buoy prints. Queen Anne smiled. "Good taste in music. The room's this way." I led him down the short hallway. We passed my bedroom door closed, and the bathroom we'd share, before reaching the 2nd bedroom. I'd emptied it completely after Marcus left, unable to deal with the ghost of us. Now it was a blank slate, freshly painted in a soft gray. "I know it's empty, but that means you can make it your own," I said. Daniel walked to the window, looking out at the rain-soaked street below. "It's perfect. Honestly, after sleeping on my cousin's couch for 2 weeks, anywhere with a door feels like luxury." "Rough transition to Seattle?" He turned back to me, and for a moment, something flickered in his expressions. Something vulnerable. "You could say that. Needed a fresh start, you know?" God, did I know. "Oh, welcome home," I said. "Let me help you grab your stuff from the car. I actually don't have much. Just what's downstairs in my truck." Sold most of my furniture before I moved. Traveling light. Together we made 3 trips, hauling boxes and bags through the rain. Daniel moved with efficient energy, never complaining about the weather or the stairs. By the time we finished, we were both damp and laughing, the initial awkwardness melting away. "I'm going to order pizza," I said, grabbing my phone. "You like pepperoni? Is that even a question?" Daniel grinned, pulling off his wet jacket. That first evening set the tone for everything that followed. We ate pizza on the couch, talking about nothing important. Favorite shows. Best pizza toppings. The weirdness of Seattle's geography. Daniel had this way of listening, like he was actually interested in whatever mundane thing I was saying. It had been so long since someone looked at me like that. When he laughed at one of my stories about a disastrous client meeting, throwing his head back unself-consciously, something warm unfurled in my chest. I pushed it down immediately, roommate. Straight, off limits, but my heart, apparently, had never been good at following rules. Living with Daniel was surprisingly easy. He was exactly what he'd promised: clean, respectful, quiet when he needed to be. He worked from home most days just like me, but we naturally found our rhythms. I took morning calls in my room. He preferred the living room for his afternoon stand-ups. We'd meet in the kitchen around lunch, making sandwiches and trading updates about work frustrations. But it was the small things that got me. The way he always made enough coffee for both of us. Remembering exactly how I took mine after I mentioned it once. How he'd leave little notes on the fridge, "Went for a run. Back in 30 inches, or bought more of that oat milk you like." The sound of him humming while he cooked. Usually something from the 80s that I recognized from my parents' playlist on Thursday evening. 5 days after he'd moved in, I came home from a rare in-office day to find Daniel in the kitchen, surrounded by ingredients. The apartment smelled incredible garlic herbs, something rich and tomatoey. "What's all this?" I asked, dropping my messenger bag by the door. "Hope you don't mind," Daniel said, looking up from the cutting board where he was dicing onions with surprising skill. "I wanted to thank you for being cool about me moving in on short notice. Making my mom's lasagna recipe. You're not vegetarian or anything, right?" "No, and you really didn't have to?" "I wanted to. Besides, cooking relaxes me." I watched him work, the confident movements of his hands, the focused expression on his face. He'd changed out of his work clothes into a faded college t-shirt and joggers. His hair slightly messy, like he'd run his fingers through it while concentrating. "Can I help?" I offered. "You can open that wine I bought. Glasses are, I know where the glasses are." "It's my apartment," I teased. He laughed. "Right. Still getting used to having a place that feels like home." There it was again, that hint of something deeper, quickly covered. I wanted to ask, but it felt too soon. Instead, I opened the wine, poured 2 generous glasses, and handed him one. "2 new beginnings," I said. "2 new beginnings," he echoed, and our glasses clinked. Dinner was incredible. Daniel's mom apparently knew what she was doing. We ate at the small dining table I rarely used, candles flickering between us because Daniel had insisted it made the food taste better. The conversation flowed easily, touching on childhood memories, college experiences, the paths that had led us both to Seattle. "So what brought you here?" I finally asked. "You mentioned needing a fresh start." Daniel's fork paused halfway to his mouth. He set it down carefully, took a sip of wine. "Bad breakup. Really bad. Sarah and I were together for 4 years, engaged for 6 months. Called it off 2 months ago. I'm sorry." "That's brutal." "Yeah." He stared at his wine glass. "Found out she'd been cheating for the last year. With my best friend from college. They're together now, actually. Posted their couple photos on Instagram the week after we ended things. Jesus, Daniel, I needed distance. My cousin lives in Tacoma, suggested I check out Seattle. Tech scene's good. I could use a place where nobody knew me as that guy whose fiancée left him for his best friend." The pain in his voice was raw, familiar. I knew that particular flavor of heartbreak, the betrayal, the humiliation, the way it made you question everything. "For what it's worth," I said carefully, "moving across the country after a breakup, I get it. I've been there. The ex who moved out before me? Marcus. 3 years together. Turned out he wanted different things. Specifically an open relationship, which he neglected to mention before sleeping with half of Capitol Hill.
Oh.
Daniel winced sympathetically. So we're both refugees from relationship disasters, apparently. Though your lasagna is significantly better than my coping mechanism, which was binge-watching every season of Project Runway while eating ice cream for dinner. He laughed, and just like that, the heavy mood lifted. We finished dinner, trading stories of post-breakup disasters, each trying to one-up the other's pathetic moments. By the time we were doing dishes together, him washing, me drying my sides hurt from laughing. I'm glad you're here, I said without thinking, then immediately wanted to take it back. Too much, too honest, but Daniel just smiled, bumping my shoulder gently with his. Me too, Alex. Me too. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and admitted the truth I'd been avoiding. I was attracted to Daniel. Not just physically, though God knows he was gorgeous, but to his kindness, his humor, the way he listened like my words mattered, the way he'd opened up about his pain without making it dramatic, just honest it didn't matter. He was straight, heartbroken, and my roommate. 3 excellent reasons to keep my feelings locked down tight. I'd done harder things than not falling for my straight roommate, probably. The next 2 weeks, established a comfortable domestic rhythm that felt dangerously like something more than friendship. Movie nights became our Friday tradition. Daniel would pick the film. I'd make popcorn. And we'd settle onto opposite ends of the couch with blankets and commentary. Except the couch seemed to shrink each week. By the 3rd movie night, our knees were touching. By the 4th, Daniel had stretched his arm across the back of the couch. Not quite around my shoulders, but close enough that I could feel the warmth of it. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Straight guys were comfortable with physical proximity. It was friendly, normal. Then came the night that changed everything. It was late November, unseasonably cold, even for Seattle. I'd been working on a difficult client project, staring at my screen for so many hours that my eyes burned. Around 11 p.m., I emerged from my room to find Daniel in the kitchen, making hot chocolate. Can't sleep? I asked. He turned, and I noticed the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. Bad day. Conference call with the old team back home? They mentioned Sarah's engagement party. To your ex-best friend. The very same. He poured hot chocolate into 2 mugs, adding marshmallows without asking if I wanted any. He just knew. Want to sit? We ended up on the couch again, this time with the lights dim and rain pattering against the windows. Daniel was quieter than usual, wrapped in the blanket from his room, staring into his mug. Can I ask you something? He said finally. Of course. How did you know? That you were gay, I mean? The question surprised me. That's a big question. Sorry. Is that too personal? I've been thinking a lot lately about identity, about the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. And I realize I've never actually talked to someone about this. About what it's like to know something about yourself that doesn't fit the script everyone handed you. There was something in his tone. In the careful way he wasn't looking at me. That made my heart beat faster. It wasn't one moment, I said slowly. It was a lot of small realizations that eventually added up to something I couldn't ignore. I was probably 15 when I first admitted it to myself. Took another 2 years to tell anyone else. Were you scared? Terrified. Not of being gay, I mean, that was scary too, but of disappointing people. Of being different. Of all the ways life would be harder, is it harder? I considered the question. Sometimes. But it's also freeing. Living as yourself. Not performing some version of who you think you should be. That's worth everything. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then, what if you spent your whole life thinking you knew who you were, and then suddenly you're not sure anymore? My breath caught. Daniel, I can't stop thinking about it, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. About how nothing felt right with Sarah. How I kept waiting to feel what everyone said I should feel. And then I moved here, and I met you, and he stopped abruptly, setting down his mug. "And what?" I asked softly. He finally looked at me, and the vulnerability in his eyes was overwhelming. "And everything feels different. Like maybe the script I was following wasn't actually mine?" We were closer now, though. I didn't remember moving. I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, the slight stubble on his jaw, the way his chest rose and fell with unsteady breaths. "Alex," he said, "I think I don't know what I am, but I know that when I'm with you, I feel more myself than I ever did with her." "Is that crazy?" "No," I whispered. "That's not crazy. I've never done this. Never even thought about," he broke off, frustrated. "I don't know what I'm doing. You don't have to know. There's no timeline, no rules. What if I mess this up? Our friendship, our living situation, everything?" I reached out, slowly enough that he could pull away if he wanted, and took his hand. His fingers intertwined with mine immediately, holding on like I was an anchor. "Then we mess it up together," I said. "But Daniel, I need you to be sure about what you're saying. I'm not going to be someone's experiment or confusion. I've been there, and I can't. You're not." His other hand came up to cup my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "God, Alex, you're not. You're the first person who's ever made me understand what all those songs and movies were talking about. The first person I've wanted to." He leaned in, and I met him halfway. The kiss was soft, tentative, a question more than an answer. His lips were warm and tasted like chocolate and marshmallows. For a heartbeat, we were both still, balanced on the edge of everything changing. Then Daniel made a small sound in the back of his throat and deepened the kiss. And I was lost. What happens next? Did Daniel just change everything between them? And can Alex trust that this is real? I woke to sunlight streaming through my window and a moment of perfect contentment before reality crashed in. I'd kissed Daniel, my roommate, my straight, maybe not straight roommate, who was questioning everything about his identity. We'd kissed for what felt like hours last night, soft and exploratory, his hands in my hair, mine on his waist. Then we'd pulled apart, both breathing hard, and Daniel had looked at me with wonder and terror in equal measure. He'd started. Yeah, I'd agreed. Even though I wanted nothing more than to pull him back, he'd gone to his room. I'd gone to mine. Neither of us had said the words hanging between us. What now? I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I should hide in here forever or face the inevitable awkwardness. The decision was made for me when I smelled coffee brewing and heard movement in the kitchen. Daniel was up. I pulled on sweatpants and a t-shirt, ran my fingers through my hair, then stopped myself from checking my appearance in the mirror. This wasn't a date. I had no idea what this was. When I entered the kitchen, Daniel was standing by the coffee maker, 2 mugs already prepared. He looked up as I entered, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. "Morning," he said finally, his voice careful. "Morning." He handed me my coffee. Perfect. As always, and we stood there, the counter between us like a barrier. The easy comfort we'd built over the past month felt fragile, breakable. "So," Daniel said, "last night, yeah? I don't regret it." The words came out in a rush, like he'd been holding them in. "I need you to know that. I'm not freaking out or trying to pretend it didn't happen." Relief flooded through me. "Okay, good, because I don't regret it either. But I am confused," he continued, setting down his mug and running a hand through his hair. "About what this means, about what I'm feeling, about everything. I've spent my whole life assuming I was straight, and now I'm questioning if I ever really knew myself at all." I moved around the counter, maintaining a respectful distance but closing the gap. "Daniel, you don't owe me any answers right now. You don't owe anyone answers. This is your journey to figure out. What if I can't figure it out? What if I'm just broken from the Sarah thing and confused and using you? Hey." I did reach out then, touching his arm gently. "You're not broken, and you're not using me. You're allowed to be confused. You're allowed to take time. But we live together, Alex. What if this gets messy? What if I hurt you? Then we deal with it. Look, I'm not going to lie. This is complicated. But I'd rather have complicated and honest than simple and pretending last night didn't matter. It mattered, he said quietly, his eyes meeting mine. It mattered so much it scared me. Me too. We stood there in the morning light, coffee cooling on the counter, the city waking up outside our windows. Finally, Daniel smiled, tentative but real. So what do we do? He asked. We take it slow. We keep talking. We figure it out together, one day at a time. I can do slow, Daniel said. Then, with a hint of his usual humor, though I might need you to define slow because that kiss last night didn't feel slow. I laughed, the tension breaking. Okay, fair point. How about this? We go about our normal day, and tonight we order Thai food and talk about what we both want. No pressure, just honest conversation. Deal. He moved closer, and for a moment I thought he might kiss me again. Instead, he pulled me into a hug, his arms warm and solid around me. I let myself sink into it, breathing in his scent, feeling his heartbeat against my chest. Thank you, he murmured against my hair. For being patient? For being you? Always, I said, and meant it. The next few weeks were a study in beautiful tension. Daniel and I orbited each other carefully, dancing between friendship and something more. We had our promised conversations, several of them. Actually late into the night over Thai food, pizza, and once a homemade pasta that Daniel insisted on making from scratch. He told me about growing up in a small town in Colorado, about the expectations that had surrounded him from childhood: be the quarterback, date the cheerleader, marry young, have kids. About how he'd followed that script perfectly until it had imploded. And now he was questioning which parts had ever really been his choice. I told him about coming out in college, about the freedom and fear of it, about Marcus and the patterns I'd fallen into of choosing emotionally unavailable men, because at least that way I controlled when it ended. I don't want to be another pattern for you, Daniel said one night, his fingers tracing absent patterns on the back of my hand as we sat close on the couch. You're not. Trust me, questioning straight guy who kisses like he's been thinking about it forever. Not my usual type. He laughed, then sobered. Have I been thinking about it? Have you? Yeah, he admitted. I think maybe I have. I just didn't have the framework to understand what I was feeling. You know what I realized? With Sarah, I was never excited to see her. Not really. I was comfortable, but I was never lit up the way I am when I hear you come home. The way my whole day gets better when you walk into a room. My heart stuttered. Daniel. I'm falling for you, he said simply. I don't know if I'm gay or bi or something else entirely, but I know I'm falling for you specifically. Is that enough? It's everything, I whispered. This time when he kissed me. It was different, sure, and seeking, like he'd made a decision and was all in. We stayed on the couch for hours, exploring this new language we were learning together. Daniel kissed like he did everything else, with focus and care and an intensity that left me breathless. Can I? He started, his hand moving to the hem of my shirt, asking permission. Yes, we moved to my bedroom, leaving a trail of clothing, pausing every few steps to kiss again. In the soft lamplight, I mapped the planes of his body, the strong shoulders, the defined abs, the sharp hip bones, and watched him do the same to me, his eyes dark with want. Tell me what you like, he whispered against my neck. I want to make this good for you. It's already good. It's perfect. We explored each other slowly, building heat and tension, until we were both trembling with need. When we finally came together, skin on skin, Daniel's eyes locked on mine, it felt like something profound, not just physical pleasure, but connection. Understanding the click of two pieces, finding where they fit. Afterward, we lay tangled together, my head on his chest, his fingers running through my hair. That was, Daniel started. Yeah, I've never felt anything like that before. Is it always? No, I said honestly. It's not always like that. That was special. Pressed a kiss to my forehead. Stay here. Tonight. I'm literally in my own bed. You know what I mean? Don't go to your side and me to mine. Stay. So I did. We fell asleep wrapped around each other, and for the first time in months, I felt completely at peace. Our bubble couldn't last forever. 3 weeks after that first kiss, Daniel suggested we actually go out like a date in public, where people would see us. "I want to take you somewhere," he said. "Not just order in and hide in the apartment. I want to be with you publicly, you're sure?" Seattle's pretty liberal, but it's still I'm sure. I mean, I'm nervous as hell, but I'm sure about you. About us. He took me to a small Italian restaurant in Belltown, intimate and candlelit, the kind of place that was clearly romantic. The host didn't bat an eye at seating 2 men at a table for 2. And when Daniel reached across to take my hand, no one stared. "This is nice," I said. "It really is." Daniel looked around, something like wonder on his face. I kept waiting for it to feel wrong or weird, but it just feels right, like this is where I'm supposed to be, for pasta and wine. We talked about everything and nothing: work projects, weekend plans, whether we should finally get around to fixing the leaky faucet in the bathroom. Normal couple things. Because that's what we were becoming, I realized. "A couple, I want to tell people," Daniel said suddenly. "About us. My family, my friends. I don't want to hide this. That's a big step. I know. And I know it might not go well with everyone. My parents are traditional, but I'm tired of living for their expectations. I want to live for what makes me happy. You make me happy, Alex. You make me happy too. So we do this? For real? Relationship? Coming out? All of it?" I squeezed his hand. All of it. Walking home through Seattle's misty streets, Daniel pulled me close, his arm around my shoulders. When we passed other couples, straight and queer, I noticed how Daniel didn't tense up, didn't create distance. He just held me closer. Back at the apartment, he pressed me against the door the moment it closed behind us, kissing me with urgent need. "Bedroom," I managed between kisses. "Too far," he murmured, and then we were fumbling with buttons and zippers. Desperate to feel skin on skin, we made love against the door, then on the couch, then finally made it to the bedroom where we took our time, exploring and teasing until we were both wrecked with pleasure. Daniel learned quickly what made me gasp, what made me beg, and he was generous in a way that told me this wasn't just physical for him either. Later, in the darkness, he held me close and whispered, "I love you. I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring everything out. But I love you, Alex." "I love you too," I whispered back, feeling the truth of it settle into my bones. Not everything was perfect. Daniel's coming out to his family the following week went about as badly as he'd feared. His parents were hurt, confused, angry, the full spectrum of difficult reactions. His mom cried. His dad hung up on him. I held him while he processed it, feeling helpless in the face of his pain. "They'll come around," I said, hoping it was true. "What if they don't? What if I've lost my family for this?" "Then you'll build a new family, with people who love you for exactly who you are." My own parents were easier. They'd known I was gay for years, and when I video called to introduce them to Daniel, my mom immediately loved him and spent 20 minutes asking him about his lasagna recipe. But I knew not everyone would have it that easy. We also had to navigate the reality of living together while dating. The small annoyances that any couple faces were amplified by the fact that we couldn't get away from each other. When Daniel went through a phase of leaving dishes in the sink, it became a fight. When I got stressed about a work deadline and snapped at him, we had to work through it in the same space. But we learned. We created rules, weekly check-ins about how we were feeling, designated alone time. A commitment to go to bed angry if we needed to, but always come back to the conversation the next day. "We're building something here," Daniel said after we'd navigated our third real argument. "Not just falling into it. Actually building it together. Is that okay? That it takes work? It's better than okay. It means we're choosing this. Every day, we're choosing each other." Daniel and Alex are building something real, but will the pressures from outside their bubble threaten what they've created? Find out in the final part. Spring came to Seattle in an explosion of cherry blossoms and longer days. Daniel and I had been together for 6 months. Officially, publicly, completely. The apartment that had once been mine was now truly ours. full of the accumulated evidence of our shared life, his hiking gear next to my vintage vinyl collection. Our books mixed together on the shelves, photos of us scattered throughout. We'd fallen into rhythms that felt like breathing. Morning coffee and crossword puzzles. Lunch breaks spent trading memes and checking in. Evenings cooking together or trying new restaurants. Weekends hiking the trails around Seattle. Daniel teaching me to appreciate the outdoors in ways I never had before.
Ow.
You know what's weird? Daniel said one Saturday morning as we drove toward Snoqualmie Falls, I don't even think about it anymore. Being with you, being in a relationship with a man, it just feels like being in love. That's not weird. That's exactly how it should feel. 6 months ago, if someone had told me this is where I'd be, he trailed off, shaking his head. I would have thought they were crazy. Now I can't imagine anything else. We hiked for hours, Daniel pointing out different trees and plants. Me pretending to be interested while mostly just watching him come alive in nature. At the top of the trail, overlooking the waterfall, he pulled me close. Thank you, he said. For what? For being patient while I figured myself out. For not giving up on me. Daniel, you made it pretty easy. You were always honest, always willing to do the work. That's all anyone can ask. He kissed me there, with the waterfall roaring below and other hikers passing by, and I felt the rightness of it settle even deeper into my soul. But back in the city, reality intruded in the form of a message from my landlord. The building was being sold. Our lease was up in 3 months, and while we could try to stay under new ownership, there were no guarantees about rent increases or lease terms. We could look for a new place, Daniel suggested that evening as we processed the news. Together. Like officially choose somewhere that's ours from the start. You want to apartment hunt together? I want to build a life together. Apartment hunting seems like a good next step. We spent the next few weeks touring places around Seattle, Capitol Hill, Fremont, Wallingford. Each apartment was wrong in different ways. Too expensive, too small, too far from downtown. We were starting to get discouraged when our realtor mentioned one more option. It's a bit outside your price range, she admitted. But it's a 2-bedroom in a renovated building in Capitol Hill. The landlord is LGBTQ friendly actually. He's gay and prioritizes queer renters. He might work with you on price. The apartment was beautiful. Hardwood floors, big windows, a modern kitchen, and the thing that sold us both a balcony overlooking the city with just enough space for a small table and chairs. Imagine having coffee out here in the mornings, Daniel said, his eyes bright. Imagine being able to afford rent, I countered, but I was smiling. We applied. 3 days later, we got the call. The landlord was offering it to us at our budget. When we asked why, he said simply, "You two remind me of my husband and me when we were starting out. Everyone deserves a chance at building their happiness." Moving day was chaos and joy. My parents flew in to help, and watching my mom and Daniel bond over packing kitchen supplies while my dad and I handled the heavy lifting felt like family in the truest sense. Daniel's sister surprised us by showing up too. She'd been one of the few family members who'd been supportive from the start. I told Mom and Dad they were being idiots, she said, hugging Daniel tight. I think Dad's starting to come around. Mom's stubborn, but she will too. Just give them time. That evening, surrounded by boxes in our new place, Daniel and I ordered pizza and sat on the balcony watching the sun set over Seattle. Happy? I asked. Incredibly, he said, leaning his head on my shoulder. Though I should probably tell you something. What? I may have already started looking at engagement rings. Sat up, looking at him in shock. Daniel, I'm not proposing right now, he said quickly, laughing at my expression. I know we've only been together 6 months, but I also know what I want, and I want forever with you. So when the time is right, when we're both ready, I want to be prepared. You're serious, completely. Unless you think it's too fast, or you don't want, I kissed him, cutting off his nervous rambling. It's not too fast, and I want that too. Forever with you. Yeah. We stayed on the balcony until the stars came out, making plans and dreaming about the future. For the first time in my life, forever didn't feel scary. It felt like coming home. 2 months into living in the Continue 1101 Am new apartment, Daniel got a message from Sarah. She was coming to Seattle for a work conference and wanted to meet for coffee to talk, to clear the air, to find closure. "You don't have to," I said when he showed me the message. "I think I want to. Not because I have feelings for her or anything, but because she was a big part of my life. And I want her to see who I am now, who I've become. Do you want me to come?" He considered it. "Would you mind? I think it might be easier with you there." We met Sarah at a cafe in downtown Seattle on a Saturday afternoon. She was exactly as I'd imagined from Daniel's descriptions. Polished, professional, beautiful in a conventional way. She stood when we approached, her eyes widening slightly when she saw me with Daniel. "Sarah," Daniel said. "This is Alex, my partner." The word still gave me a thrill every time he used it. "Nice to meet you," Sarah said, extending her hand. Her handshake was firm, but her smile was uncertain. We sat down, ordered coffee, and endured several minutes of awkward small talk about Seattle weather and Sarah's conference before she finally addressed the elephant in the room. "I owe you an apology," she said to Daniel. "A real one, not the half-hearted text I sent when you moved. What I did was wrong. How I did it was cruel, and you deserved so much better." Daniel nodded slowly. "I appreciate you saying that. Can I ask?" She hesitated, glancing at me. "Were you already questioning? When we were together?" "Honestly, I don't know. I think some part of me always knew something wasn't quite right, but I didn't have the framework to understand it. I thought what we had was what love was supposed to feel like. And now?" Her voice was soft, genuinely curious rather than bitter. Daniel looked at me, and the love in his eyes was so clear that my breath caught. "Now I know the difference. Now I know what it feels like to be completely myself with someone. To be seen and loved for exactly who I am." Sarah's eyes glistened. "I'm glad you found that. And I'm sorry it took me hurting you for you to get there." "Me too. But I think we both needed to end, to find what we were really looking for." They talked for another half hour, finding closure and forgiveness. When we finally left, Daniel seemed lighter, like he'd set down a weight he'd been carrying. "Thank you for being there," he said, as we walked through the city hand in hand. "Always." "How do you feel?" "Free. Finally. Completely free. Ready to move forward without looking back." 8 months had become a year, then 15 months. Daniel and I built our life together piece by piece, an adopted cat named Bowie. Sunday morning farmers market trips, a tradition of trying a new restaurant every month. Game nights with our growing friend group. Daniel had come out at work and been met with overwhelming support. His relationship with his parents was still strained, but his mom had started sending occasional texts, and his dad had called on Daniel's birthday. Progress, however slow. I'd been promoted at work, and Daniel had started a side project building apps for small LGBTQ-owned businesses, something that combined his tech skills with his desire to give back to the community that had embraced him. We were happy. Not in a perfect, nothing ever goes wrong way, but in a real worked for, chosen everyday way. On the day of our 1-year anniversary of moving into the apartment, Daniel told me to dress nice. He was taking me somewhere special. He wouldn't tell me where, just smiled mysteriously and told me to trust him. We drove north out of the city, and I realized where we were going. Snoqualmie Falls. Where we'd gone on that first hiking date, getting nostalgic. I teased something like that. The sun was setting when we reached the overlook, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The falls thundered below, and the air smelled like pine and wildflowers. There were a few other people around, but Daniel led me to a quieter spot. "You know what I was thinking about today?" he said, taking both my hands. "About how a year and a half ago, I showed up at your door with a duffel bag and no idea who I really was. I was lost, broken, hiding from a life that had fallen apart." "Daniel, let me finish. You gave me a home, but more than that, you gave me space to figure out who I was. You were patient and kind and honest, even when it would have been easier to push me away. You helped me discover parts of myself I didn't know existed, and somewhere along the way, I fell completely, irrevocably in love with you." My heart was pounding now, because I could see where this was going. "Thanks, Chen," Daniel said. lowering himself to one knee and pulling a small box from his pocket. You are my home, my adventure, my best friend, and the love of my life. Would you marry me? The ring was perfect, simple, elegant, exactly my style. Around us, the other people at the overlook had noticed and were watching with smiles. The sun was setting over the waterfall, and the man I loved was looking up at me with hope and certainty in his eyes. Yes, I said, my voice breaking with emotion. Yes, absolutely yes. He stood, sliding the ring onto my finger, and kissed me as the people around us applauded. I was crying, he was crying, and it was perfect. I love you, I said against his lips. I love you so much. I love you too, forever. We stayed on that mountain until the stars came out, wrapped in each other's arms, talking about wedding plans and our future. When we finally drove home to our home, I couldn't stop looking at the ring on my finger. This symbol of the life we were building, our wedding was small, intimate, perfect. My parents, Daniel's sister, a handful of close friends. We got married on the balcony of our apartment at sunset. With the city we'd built our life in spread out below us, Daniel's mom didn't come. But she sent a card with a note that said, I'm trying to understand. Give me time. His dad called the day after to say gruffly, Congratulations, son. It was progress. We honeymooned in Italy, Daniel's choice, inspired by that first dinner he'd made me. We ate incredible food, explored ancient cities, and spent lazy afternoons in our hotel room discovering each other all over again. Back in Seattle, we settled into married life. It looked a lot like dating life. Honestly, same apartment, same rhythms. Same love, but with an added sense of permanence that made everything sweeter. On a rainy November evening, 2 years after Daniel had first knocked on my door, we were curled up on the couch with Bowie between us, watching the rain slide down the windows. Can you believe it's been 2 years? I asked. Best 2 years of my life, Daniel said, pressing a kiss to my temple. Even the hard parts, especially the hard parts. They taught us how to fight for this, for us. And look what we built. I looked around our apartment, our home full of the evidence of our life together. Photos from our wedding, books we'd read aloud to each other, the coffee maker that knew both our orders, Bowie's cat tower in the corner. We built something pretty amazing, I agreed. We're building, Daniel corrected. This is just the beginning. He was right. This was just the beginning. There would be more challenges ahead. Career changes, possible kids, aging parents, all the complex realities of life. But we'd face them together, the way we'd faced everything else, with honesty, patience, and love. Hey, Alex, Daniel said softly. Yeah. Thank you for saying yes when I needed a roommate. And for saying yes again when I needed a husband. Q, for knocking on my door. And for never leaving. Outside, the rain continued to fall on Seattle, washing the city clean and new. Inside, we held each other close, Bowie purring between us. I marveled at how a chance roommate posting had led to the love of my life. I didn't expect this with my roommate. But I wouldn't change a single moment of our journey, from strangers to friends to lovers to husbands. Every step had led us here, to this moment, to this life we'd chosen together. And I'd choose it again, every single time.